Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit. Welcome to Roll for Crit. Today we are joined by Laura Hoffmann, who is the COO over at Game On Tabletop, which is a crowdfunding platform specifically geared towards board games. Thank you for joining us today. Laura, if you could introduce yourself and introduce the platform, and maybe for people who don't know about it, could you talk a little bit about just a general overview of what it is, how it got started, and who it's for?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, both of you, for having me here. It's a pleasure. So, like you said, I'm Laura. I work for Game On Tabletop. I manage lots of our project manager accounts there, also our internal teams, and lots of other things that come along with that. Game On Tabletop is a crowdfunding platform dedicated to tabletop games, crowdfunding for gamers by gamers, basically. What really differentiates us is, one, obviously the fact that we are targeted to that audience, to that industry as well. It's the place where we come from, that we know best, and that we also want to support in every way we can. On the one hand, helping project managers get their project out, but also investing into new tools and new solutions that make that process even better over time. The other part is also that our solution is geared to be an all-in-one solution for tabletop crowdfunding. So we've integrated the entire pledge management system into our crowdfunding system, so you don't have to use external services for that. We also provide help and insight to make the whole process less overwhelming, especially for newer creators or for repeat creators, to find and build the solutions that they need to make it even a more streamlined process all along. And yeah, that's the basic pitch around Game On.
As a crowdfunding site, especially in the board game world now, it's become very big that it's not just a sort of single targeted market. It's all over the world to help get games there. How's you tackled that, trying to make sure and deal with, when you have to deal with either shipping or different currencies?
We try to work with creators all over the world. Our main markets are going to be the US, France, Germany. We do have quite some Italian publishers and a couple of other countries, the UK, Australia and stuff. And what we've learned is that, for one, obviously, the challenges are not the same based on the location you are with. And we try to address them as accurately as we can. So obviously, we work with different currencies. We have an international shipping calculator integrated that every project manager can set up the way that they need. So they can be as specific and have different shipping locations and weights for every different element that they're having, or they could be more vague, or just say, hey, I'm shipping only to the US, or I'm shipping only to that specific region there. What we try is also to facilitate, to put them in touch with people if they're still missing solutions on that. What's for us is important is finding out a way that they are not alone and that they are not missing out on those important steps that are, for instance, shipping, logistics, right? That's a big budget and it's very important to put in place, and it's very boring as well. So we try to work with them and figure it out.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing out there, navigating all this stuff. What would you say are some of the biggest features, like specifically for creators maybe who are looking at how they should launch their game ideas, that you would say these are the things that make this really streamlined, really easy, that will help you compared to other platforms that are out there?
For me, the biggest is the fact that the whole pledge management system is integrated into the one single system. It makes it streamlined in the sense of that you know what you sold to whom, at which point, where do you need to ship it, how many items do you have to produce, right? Which product needs to be produced at X amount, where can you ask for a new shipping quote, even going as far as seeing where you're at with your margin. Are you actually breaking down? Is your your stretch goal expansion selling enough, right? You get all of those tools that allow you to see how you're doing and also to adjust while the campaign is live. And also not having to, what I see a lot is people building their crowdfunding campaign, but not necessarily thinking about all the steps, how to manage it, how to insert that into a pledge manager, how to translate it into something that can then be delivered to a backer. And the fact is that you can set up all of those bits and pieces right when you're launching your campaign. It just makes it so much clearer for the backer and for yourself because you have that information. Basically, if you've already ready to hit production for your product, you could start shipping out as soon as the campaign ends, based on the fact that you have all the data available because you collected throughout the campaign. That will be one of the biggest things that I think is a huge benefit for creators. And also some of the other things that are just simple things that can be automized, like stretch goals. They can be something that you can configure, right? You don't have to have it be images that you have to manually exchange. It can be something that unlocks by themselves. The same is true for some elements that will show up on a campaign page. They can be automized, right? And so our goal is to move in that direction and figure out the things that are used by nearly all creators and how we can make those into actual technical solutions, take away that management that they have to do and give them back time to actually engage with the community and create a great game.
There's plenty of love for games in general, but one of the reasons is because your site I'm sure exists is because board games have exploded in the crowdfunding area. You know, a lot of games nowadays are made on this platform. What are your thoughts on this? Why do you think we're seeing so many board games here just decide that's the way they want to go in order to create their game instead of maybe going straight to a publisher?
Yeah, I think board games are a great experience in our times, right? People have been so much more focused on screens and video games, and now board games have become a luxury experience in some kind of way. It doesn't need to be luxury in the sense of expensive, but it is, okay, finding the time to get around a table, play together, or even solo game, but also taking that time to set up your game and play together. And I think that really got some value. And so people are ready to invest into that. And what crowdfunding has basically allowed is to see some games emerge that are less targeted to the mass market and would not have been released if it was just for the big retail, because it's too high of a risk. And so those games are now a possibility through crowdfunding, and also that quality. I mean, you take the time to gather all your friends or your family around the table and pull out these bits and pieces that are physical bits and pieces. And what is more amazing than if these bits and pieces are not only cardboard and plastic, but are actually metal coins or like a very deluxe leatherette version of your rule book or something like that. And I think so that talks a lot to those people. To me, for instance, it talks a lot. It's even more of a pleasure. And it's also about having a real choice, having that choice to say, hey, this is the game I want to play tomorrow. And I don't want to play only the games that are going to be on the shelves decided by the big publishers necessarily. And yeah, I think that really hit its market with the board game industry there. And that's why it's become a real sales channel, in and of itself over the past few years.
Yeah, it is. I mean, clearly it's been, for a lot of things, crowdfunding has been big, but it does seem like board games in particular, maybe more so than any other medium. I don't know that there are any like movie specific crowdfunding sites, for instance. Maybe there probably is one. There's something for everything, but it's clearly board games can use that attention, and games that wouldn't exist otherwise have been made possible through platforms like this. I think one of the features that we touched on that's really interesting, I'd like to go back to with Game on Tabletop, is the fact that it has a built-in marketplace. And that's something that, like, you could go there and shop for something that has been crowdfunded in the past, for instance, and that isn't currently being funded. That's correct?
Definitely. So it's something quite new. We've released that this year because we had a couple of publishers reaching out to us because of the whole Corona situation. Obviously, a lot of stores have been closed, and a lot of publishers don't necessarily have their own store or don't have traffic on their own website to actually keep the sales running. And so, I mean, we do tens of thousands of transactions every year. So we have the structure to do those financial transactions around those board game projects. And so we're like, hey, let's open those tools and also give the possibility to have a marketplace where these people can sell their stock that they're overproduced, and especially potentially anything that's like really limited edition or really deluxe or doesn't make sense to be sold in retail. I mean, there are products that are great for retail, even products that have been crowdfunded and that do amazingly in retail. And there are other products that were meant to be just crowdfunding products, but still sometimes they're leftover quantities. And I think our audience is perfect for that, because our audience, what are they looking for? They're looking for great games, games that are difficult to find otherwise, and for huge production value. And I think that makes a lot of sense to also give that additional step in the sales channel there as a possibility for creators.
Yeah, I mean, since you're already focused on board games, people who are going to visit there, want board games. And I know for me, like the very first time I funded was for a Christmas gift for Jonathan. And I'm like, oh, he'll make it by that date, which it didn't. But this way, there's also like, look, there's things on it back that are good. But like, here's what I can get right away, which is very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And we talked a lot, I'd say, about a fair amount about how the service makes things easier for creators. But what about the backers, people who are looking at things? What are some ways this is also maybe more appealing? Are there certain ways that people can get updates, be alerted about new projects, stretch goals being changed, and things like that make it a little more user friendly, for the consumer?
So I'd say there are a couple of things that are nice for the backer as well. Like, for instance, one example would be the digital loot that we just released, which allows creators to make their digital files available right through Game On. So if they have a PDF version of their book or an STL file or an MP3 for music or something like that, they can make that available through the website directly. So the backer can basically just log in back to their Game On account and access those files. They don't have to have that email. And the same is true for the whole pledge management process. I mean, it's also a big issue for backers, because they have to constantly day back on one platform and then have to go into another system and log back in and make sure they don't miss the email, because otherwise they won't get it. I mean, they have that one-stop shop as well. Like, they check out and they will be sure they receive it. They can still go in and change the order throughout the campaign time, so they can still modify it if they want to. But if they don't need to, well, at least they will be sure that they don't have to come back and check out anything. And then also, I think it's an advantage which is maybe more invisible, but they also know that creators are less left alone. So we don't guarantee success, and we don't guarantee that the project managers will fulfill, but we will try to reach out and we will try to talk. And we have been able to help a couple of creators that have been struggling finding solutions to fulfill their products. And I think it's always a better sense of knowing, okay, those are people that care about the same things than the backers, in the sense of we're really in that industry, and if we can connect someone to a solution, we definitely will. That would be some of the elements I would highlight there.
That makes sense, because once again, because you focused in on board games, if you have come across someone who's having a hard trouble dealing with finding a certain place to build a piece, you now know that. So the next time that comes up for another creator, you are able to help point that out a bit more, so the backers shouldn't be left in the wind too much.
Yes, again, it might still happen. And I mean, there are creators that are struggling, that don't reach out, or that we cannot help or anything. But at least we'll try to do our possibility. And I think there's a lot of virtue in that, and a lot that we can build up on as well over time, even more. We're looking into how can we connect distribution and retails? How can we connect even more resources, production, manufacturing, maybe even more marketing? We team up with creators sometimes to get some cool new info out there or communicate together. So yeah, we will try to do as much as we can to build that up, because the success of the project is a success for a project manager, it's a success for the backer, but it's also our success. And that's important for us. So obviously the more we invest into that, the better it is for everyone.
Now, we've talked about plenty of how this helps creators and backers, and also how it's been growing. We look and we're seeing now big companies that probably could make their own games, start their own projects. How do you feel about that when you start seeing like not just the smaller companies who maybe have a much more niche audience or wouldn't be the obvious game you see on big retail shelves, that we now see those bigger names coming into the crowdfunding marketplace?
Yeah, so I absolutely love working with smaller publishers, and I love the fact that it's really making someone's dream come true, and it's a very special place to be able to help them. But I also work with a couple of bigger publishers, and it's weird, but it's actually the same thing. It's actually generally the projects that they crowdfund are projects that they don't know how to release in retail in the same way. Obviously, they could just invest the money in them, but they don't necessarily always know how well they are doing, how much they can give into that, and also is it hitting the right audience when it goes through retail? I mean, there are people that are mainly backing crowdfunding projects because they also love the fact that they are living the adventure, that they are getting the stretch goals, that they are having that communication in some sense. And kind of like these people go there and they are there. So I think also the big publishers have to be present there to get that audience over as well. So I actually think, and I've worked with a lot of big publishers, and they've been just as stressed before the launch of a project as the tiny ones, because so much was on stake for them as well. I mean, it's not the same numbers sometimes, but still, it's projects that they've had people work on for years, and that they've invested time and money and stuff like that into it. And they were not sure it would be something that would work well in retail. So yeah, the process and the story and the adventure is very different, whether it's a tiny publisher or a more established one that regularly does it, or a huge company that does it from time to time for some projects. But kind of like the feeling below it generally is kind of the same. And I think the ecosystem works because there are the big ones and the small ones. So when we have a big project launching, it's very beneficial for smaller ones. And the smaller ones keep up the urgency of crowdfunding and the real story of the people. Hey, yeah, I just created my game. This is my dream. Can we make my dream happen? And so I think both are necessary, that crowdfunding is as successful as it is today.
Yeah, it's definitely true that I think, some of the bigger name titles can also draw more attention to other projects in general. They go there for one thing, they end up seeing and coming back for smaller titles maybe. And also, I think worth pointing out that in our industry, even the bigger companies a lot of them are still relatively small, I guess, compared to other, sometimes some of the big names we think of might still be a team of like 30 people or something like that. So everybody could use all the help they can get, I guess, especially in these trying times. And why don't we talk about some specifics? I mean, there are some big names that people will be familiar with that have gone through Game on Tabletop. What are some of maybe your personal favorite projects that you've seen go through there, or just some of the most successful that have been exciting to watch?
So it's really difficult to pick favorites in there because
top 3, top 5, whatever you want.
Top 5, I think for me it's just I'm so close with the project managers running these that I kind of like appreciate all of them, but for very different reasons, because I work with the people, right? I love the games and I back lots of those projects as well, but I'm most honored to be in the place working with the people. And so obviously if I would pick favorites, it would be for people, and I'm not going to do that right here. But a couple of projects that I really enjoyed having was obviously we ran the Kingmaker campaign with Paizo last year, which is an RPG campaign, but I love the Paizo team, and it was a real pleasure to have that campaign on there. And we worked with the pledge manager for the new Conan crowdfunding campaign with Monolith, and that's a great team as well. So that's a bit more for the bigger names maybe of a project I'd like to line out. We have a couple of French and German publishers that are super, super regular. They have like one campaign a month with us. And I think that's really amazing that they get to get that strain. So there's Ulysses and Les Douze Singes, for instance, and that are doing that. So we're really happy with that. And then obviously there are lots of smaller projects that I absolutely adore as well, or find really exciting. Like we had a Belgium board game and RPG club funding their new gaming location. So they had the opportunity to purchase a house for a very symbolic amount, but they needed to do work in that, and so they crowdfunded that, and it was really fun because like the pledge levels were like, I don't know, Belgian beer mugs, and then adventures written by one of their club members, and that was those are projects I really enjoy as well. So I don't have like real favorites to pick out there. I think all of them are amazing for some of the stuff that they do very specifically. But yeah, so those are just some on the top of my head that I'd point out right here.
You love all your children equally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the right person to ask a question because I'm so much so close in there that it's really yeah. You dedicate so much time to everyone that everything is an experience and an adventure that I enjoy being part of.
I'm sure right after this gets published, they're all going to email you like, but I'm the favorite, right?
I'm the favorite, right? Yeah. Like they will always ask me, like I have a lot of project managers before they launch, they will ask me, so how much do you think that we will make? Like, and I have that rule. I'm like, I'm never betting or giving any number on any of the projects I work with because yeah, I'm too much in that, like, right? That's never something I'm gonna give you. They're like, oh yeah, please bet something, please give us your advice. I'm like, I'm not gonna give you any numbers, but I'm sure you'll do great. And we will do everything we can to make it as best as possible. But yeah, it's really difficult to draw the line between the implication that we might have for some of those projects.
It's dangerous territory. You don't want to.
Amazing, right? I mean, it's you see the most stressful times of some of those publishers sometimes, but it's also really humbling to be as close in that relationship. I think, yeah, it really opened me so many encounters, so many great, amazing adventures. Yeah, I'm really grateful for that.
Well, it's clear that you are super passionate about this, and I think it's exciting that I can only assume extends to everyone else working behind the scenes. Like you said, for gamers, by gamers, that you have people who understand what goes into these games and also what makes them so much fun to play once they're finally completed. And so I think that's part of what makes the site stand out too, that it's you can kind of feel that somewhere. You can tell just in the DNA of it that everybody who's on board is enthusiastic about games and cares about the end product being a good product and not just we get 10% or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think for you guys it's actually 5%. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 5%. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's always a part of the equation, and sometimes it also can become frustrating because we can only do so much, and we cannot save everyone or make it work for everyone. We cannot guarantee any success and stuff. And obviously it comes down to the end as well that we have to live as well, right? We have to manage that and find the right balance in there. But yeah, I definitely am very passionate about that, and it's still exciting when somebody writes an email and says, hey, I found your website and I have my game idea and I'd like to work with you on that, right? I mean, that's for me, that's always been a dream to see how that works and to be able to see how so many different companies work. Like I was more on the publishing side before, and you will be friends and collaborators and partners with other publishers, but it's still going to be like everybody does a bit of their thing, right? And this is a special position where you're actually able to work with different people and see how they work also differently and also the different challenges they might be facing. And I think that's a learning experience every time around. Even if it is really challenging and sometimes it's really frustrating because you have to say to them, I don't have a solution for that right now. We have to do it otherwise, or I don't know what to do, right? So that happens, but it's part of it, right? It's part of it, but it's still always better to be able to exchange around those subjects.
Well, it's good to have you working at it and trying to make it a better sphere for everybody involved with board games and the crowdfunding thereof. GameOnTabletop.com is the website. Is there anywhere else people can follow you guys and keep up with new projects and everything like that? Is that the best place to do it?
Yeah, obviously you will find us on all of the big social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a Discord that is available on our website as well. You can sign up to our newsletter where we will send out updates to the new products and the new projects on our website. So yeah, feel free to reach out to anyone from our team as well through social media again, or through our website at any time if you have more questions. Obviously, always.
And also, is that a real working hoverboard behind you back there?
It's not really working, but it does look like the actual thing.
Okay, well,
Not yet
I
working.
thought maybe you had better tech over there that we we don't have
Working on it.
access to
We're
yet.
working on it, but not yet.
You're making sure you can actually get that time travel so you can tell people you can guarantee those projects.
A future
I'll work on that
crowdfunding.
too, right? Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, Laura, for hanging out with us and telling us about Game on Tabletop. I do think it's a pretty cool platform with some unique features that the website is very user friendly and feels good design. So I think you guys are doing a good job. That's just my opinion.
Well, thank you. It's always appreciated, right? Thanks both of you for having me, for your time. It's been a pleasure to be on here.
Of course.
Yes.
And once again, if you're a kind of person who likes to back plenty of projects or you're looking to create your own, definitely give this site a look. At least if you're doing a board game. If you're not doing a board game, probably not the best place.
Yeah, that's the one exception. Thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Roll for Crit. Here's an idea. Support our Patreon or like and subscribe to this channel for more.
Subscribing gives you a +2 to your charisma stat.